Perfect. So what I'm going to do now is now, like Liz mentioned, with the integration, you won't have to come in and invite applicants yourself. It will be done at a certain stage if you join up with Kira, and that's it. If you ever wanted to, you can invite them through Kira yourself, but obviously it's a little bit of manual work that you can probably avoid because of the integration. But what I'm going to do now is invite myself as an applicant to this assessment here, and just show you what this looks like. When they get invited to Kira as well, you'll see this, there's this standardized like welcome invite email that we have done up previously. And if you ever want to add in your own timeline for the applicant, say like, please complete this application by a certain amount, just add it in anywhere here. You've room to edit that, but this is a standardized method that has been agreed upon the school, so I wouldn't edit it too much. I know it was something that Liz looked at for everyone, but this is, yes, so this process does happen automatically if you're all in Salesforce as well. But if you're ever looking at what this looks like before it goes to an applicant, you can just preview this here as well. But because I'm going to invite myself, I'm going to send the email to myself and show you exactly what it looks like from the email side as well. So if I come in here and refresh my email, I'll see here I've got an email from University of Nevada, and I'll see that UNLV interview, I've got an UNLV interview invitation for physical therapy DBD. The reason why this says physical therapy DBD is because that was the assessment we copied originally. So in the email invite, I didn't change the name from the training assessment, which you need to do as well. But this will all automatically be updated for you because of the integration as well. You remove that manual work there. But you'll see here that you've been invited to complete an assessment for the training assessment at University of Nevada, Las Vegas Graduate College. So this is the organization name that's the same for absolutely everyone. And the assessment name is what can be different. So this is what you can like name yourself. Typically it's just what the program is called and then the year that they've been invited to, but that's completely up to you, and I'll leave that for you to decide what to name that to. So we'll see the email here. They're told as well at a couple of stages that if an applicant runs into any tech issues, we want them to reach out to us because we cover the tech support for the applicant side. We have 2 people in-house that do that as well. And then we have the chatbot, which I'll show you on the platform. So if an applicant ever emails you and says they've had trouble, just tell them to email support@kiratalent.com, and then our team can help them straight away. Once they click check-in, this is the page they'll be brought to. So they'll see the logo of the school, the picture. You might remember this from just maybe 40 minutes ago when we clicked the preview button, but now it actually says welcome. To get started, please check in and register and set up your device. And it tells them then they can complete practice questions as many times as you like before starting your actual Kira assessment. They have an option to look at tips before they actually check in. So if they click learn more, they're told what kind of devices are accepted. If they go next, they're told how many questions they have and how long it should take them to complete those questions. This now, if you have 5 questions per applicant, and that can change per applicant as well. So what we have is we can either have static questions, which means every applicant gets the same question, or we can have randomized. So they'll all get a different question, but ask the same competency as well. That's something that Liz will send out to you after this as well, in an email too. Once they click next, they're told like just some best tips and practices, just to say like basically turn off notifications and everything, make sure they're in good light. We also then tell them how the accessibility side of the platform, so that there's closed captions on the videos. You can text resize the text as well. You can have audio notifications, and you can also combine assistive technology with Kira as well. And then they're brought in to check in again. So once they click check in, this is the page they got. So they'll see they have 5 steps to complete. You can't move to the next step without doing the first step first. But one thing I want you to note here is at any stage the applicant is completing their Kira assessment, they're always going to see this little help button here. And what this is our chatbot Charlie. So you can imagine, like, typically if someone has any issues, it's going to be similar things like webcam or microphone. If we type in webcam here, it'll bring up like different options, like if they need help set up, troubleshooting, or they want to choose a different camera. And we have tips put in there for how to do that. If they ask the chatbot 3 questions and it doesn't get them answered, then this chat will go directly to our actual live support team. And so the chatbot is 24/7, but our support team is Monday to Friday in EST time, about 9 till 6. And that's then they answer them the next day as well, but it will always still go there if it's not answered. So again, just to reiterate, you don't have to do the applicant support side yourself. First of all, an applicant must come in and watch the welcome
Hello,
video.
I'm Kate.
You'll see here the closed caption option is on automatically. They can come in and turn it off.
Corrigan, and I'm the Dean of the Grad.
Or they can turn it back on again. We're not going to watch this whole welcome video just in the interest of it, but if you do join, you'll be able to come in and watch it yourself. But the applicants must watch the full welcome video before moving to the next step. I don't need to, because I'm logged in right now as Christine, so as a user, you don't need to do that. But the next step they'll have to do is register. So because they're going to be invited through integration, they're already going to have registered. They're already going to have their email in here already. They can't come in and change it, or if you invite them through Kira, that email is hard coded in. This means that anyone who is coming in to complete it can't just decide to do a test run first. Their email is already there and they know that this is their one chance as well. Once they register, they'll be asked to do a device setup. Again, it's give a tick because I've already done this previously on this laptop, but I'll just show you what the device setup looks like. So it makes sure that their camera and microphone is working. If they have a different webcam, what they can do here is come in and choose it here. If they're using headphones and they want to come in, they can look at their built-in microphone, if they want their like headphones, whatever way they want to record themselves. And you'll see here that we asked them to record a sample. So this is because we want to make sure that they can hear themselves clearly before they go into their practice or anything like that. These little green bubbles will tell them that their microphone is actually working, but we make them record something and it kind of mimics how the assessment would look. So we ask them to say, I'm going to do really well in this assessment, because we want them to talk for a couple of seconds, but we also want to give them a bit of confidence going into it. And then once this has been recorded, we ask them to play this. So we ask and say, did your recording have video or audio? And click yes to check in. If they click no, they'll be brought back to the troubleshooting page where they try to get their device setup done as well. Okay, so once they've done those first 3 steps, now they can start practicing on Kira. So the practice questions are nothing like your actual assessment. They're literally like quite generic questions. I think you use the Kira generic ones. You don't have your own practice ones recorded. But basically all it's there for is so that the applicants get familiar with using the platform before going into their actual assessment, and they can settle their nerves. They can get used to talking into a camera and everything like that. It will mimic the exact setup of their assessment. The only thing it will say, it will tell them here that the response to practice questions are only available to them and they cannot be reviewed by anyone else. And that's because we do not save their practice questions anywhere. Even myself, I can never go in and look at an applicant's practice question because it's just their time to prepare for themselves for using the platform as well. Once they click start, they'll see here, so this looks exactly like the real assessment in the sense that they'll see how, other than saying that they're in practice here and here, they'll see that they have 2 video questions. They can't move to the second one without doing the first one. They'll see it's a video question. They'll see they have 30 seconds to prep, a minute to respond, and then they can start their question. And I think you actually did. If you could
share a meal with anyone who ever lived, who would you choose and why?
So you actually did, I kind of forgot about that, Liz, actually you did record your own practice ones. So if you're setting up assessments, this is already going to be there when we're setting them up, so it's not something you need to worry about at all. But in the practice assessment, and in the real assessment as well, the applicant must sit through the prep time that you give them. They can't skip the prep time, they have to sit through it, but they can end their responses early. But for this part, they can't do anything, only they can always see the question, they can see how long they have left, they get a 3, 2, 1 that countdown timer, and then it's very clear that recording, because it says recording right here, they see how long they have left, and they always see their question. There's one thing to note is the question never disappears for the applicant, so they're never going to have to write down a question anywhere. It's always going to be there when they're being asked, when they're in the prep time, and when they're in the response time. But when an applicant feels like, for example, if you're giving them a minute and a half to respond and they feel like after 45 seconds or a minute they've given a really good answer and they don't want to ramble on for the last 30 seconds, they can come in here and click submit, and submit their video, and that's it. In the practice, because you're giving them a chance to get familiar with the assessment and everything, they can come back in here and watch their video. They can see how they appear on camera, see how comfortable they look, and they can choose to do that question again, or they can do the next question. That's the difference between the practice and the real assessment. They cannot watch their video after, it's just saved and moves to the next question, and you'll see that in the actual assessment. And then we'll see here for this question, there's 45 seconds prep and a minute and a half to respond. We can start.
Would you rather travel 10,000 years into the past or 10,000 years into the future, and why?
And you might have noticed in between question 1 and 2, question 1 had 30 seconds to prep, question 2 had 45. This can be chosen by you. So each competency can be a different amount of prep time and different amount of response time. If, for example, you're using motivation and you feel like motivation only needs 30 seconds prep and a minute response, but then you're using grit and you feel like grit needs a minute to prep and 2-minute response, that can all be changed. So it doesn't, if all your questions don't have to have the exact same prep and response time, just your whole competency has to have the same time. And you'll see that there will be a list of all the questions under each competency when Liz sends that out. If you decide to join Kira, that you can use it. But that's just one thing to note, is you have the choice of how long you want to give them for each of that as well. So I'll submit this, and then I've done my practice. I can practice again, or I can go back and return to the actual check-in page. And we'll see here that I have 80% complete, because all I have left to do now is my actual assessment. Any questions before I jump into this? Okay. So when they start the real assessment, it's a little different here, that you'll just see they won't be told they can practice as many times, or they'll see themselves. They'll just be told they're starting their actual assessment and that they have 3 questions to complete. Once they start here, they'll see they have 3 questions. Again, they can't move from 1 to 3. They have to do them in order. Again, you'll see this little question button up here. This is the chatbot Charlie. It's always going to be there for them while they're doing their assessment. And they'll see that they're in their actual assessment as well. For this one, they'll see they have a minute prep and a minute response time. And once they start the question,
tell us about a time you failed either at work or in the classroom. How did this happen? How did it make you feel? And how did you deal with it?
And again, the captions, the applicant has the option to turn them on or off themselves, just with the CC button. And then the question always appears underneath as well throughout the prep time. So again, the only thing they can end early is the response time. They can't end their prep time early. Any questions on this so far? Okay, so we wait for this prep time to go through. And once I complete this as an applicant, I'll just go back in and show you where I will live as a applicant after too. As in, so when all of them completed, where they actually will go then after. I think we have 2 more questions in this assessment to do, and I won't actually do out the response time, so I'll just talk for like 5 seconds so it picks up like someone speaking, and then I'll submit it here. So we won't waste our time going through it as an applicant as well. But just remember,
describe a time when you changed your approach to a situation or task based on the fact that those involved were from diverse backgrounds. How did you identify that your approach might need to be changed, and what was the change in the approach?
So again, these can all be different with the prep and response time. If you're joining Kira, it's something you can just think about internally. Also, if we're setting up an assessment and you're not really sure how long to give it, we can give a generic time first, and then you can come in and do the assessment yourself as an applicant, or if you want to get one of your students who are already admitted to do it as an applicant to see how long it might take them. If it's too long or too short, you can do that and then change it right up until you're going to invite your actual applicants. If you're doing that, I would just do that before we kind of set up the integration side for it. So if we're setting it up, Liz, if there's anyone that ever wants it changed, I'd probably just do it before we're going to do before I send you the GUIDs as well. so we have one more question after this. So again, I'm just going to talk for a few seconds, because if I sit silently and click submit, it will tell me there was a technical error because they didn't hear any sound, and then we may do the question again. So that's one thing to note, is you should never get a video without sound, because it doesn't let them just sit there and not record anything. They'll have to actually do the assessment.
Imagine a situation in which you're giving feedback to your superior, both positive and negative. How would you go about giving this feedback in an effective and professional way?
And again, this is the final one. After this, all that you'll see is they'll see a closing video that's recorded from the school as well previously. All your questions have been previously recorded, so once you decide what ones you want, we'll just be building it based on them. And then if you want to see what it looks like and you don't want to do it as an applicant, if you just want to click that edit option at the side of your assessment, those 3 dots I showed you earlier, you'll be able to go in and play all your videos without going in as an applicant. So that's something it's completely up to you that you can do as well. One thing as well is, as an applicant, if you register at a certain stage, you'll actually, once you complete the registration, you'll actually get an email to say complete the registration. So the applicants can come back in and do their assessment. If they, for example, register and then they want to just register and they want to come back in and do their assessment in a day, they can come back in and register and use that continue check-in link. The only time they have to sit and do it fully is when they're actually in their real assessment. So they can go practice, they can finish their practice, and then come back a day later and complete their actual assessment. Typically, it doesn't happen often. Most of them complete it within 1 day, but they have the option that if they just want to do the practice and then look at it after, they have the option too.
Thank you for completing your.
So that's a closing video. What we do as well, once they're finished, is we ask them to rate Kira. It's completely optional. They can say skip feedback, but we use this when we're making changes to the applicant side of the platform to see kind of what feedback that we can do to improve it as well. So if we give a star rating, and you don't have to write on it, just say send feedback, they'll be brought to this page to say they've completed their assessment, it's 100% complete, and they'll also get an email to say it's complete too. That's no problem that you had to leave for a meeting, and you might be already gone, but that's pretty much everything on the platform anyway. Is there anything else, Liz, that you think is going to be helpful for me to show?
I think that's it. Thanks for coming, everyone. We can answer questions. It looks like Dr. Lau and Dr. Shrestha, so it's just you, Chip. But I'll send an email out after this about getting set up if you want to do it. And it's not something you have to complete right away. If you want to do it later, talk to your faculty, whatever, I can set this up at any time.
Absolutely.
I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So one, so I'm a student, I'm taking, the assessment. What happens if something happens, like the power goes out, or, my internet drops or whatever, but I'm in the middle of, recording the video, or I'm at some point, what happens then?
So whatever point they drop off, so say for example, we have 3 questions here.
Right.
Middle of question 2, power cuts off. When the power comes back on and they're going back into their assessment, they'll be starting at question 2 again. So they don't technically, all applicants sit in one sitting because they know they have to, but there's not, if they drop off, they can go back in. We just don't advertise this, because if you say, oh, you can complete question 1 and come in tomorrow and complete question 2, if you close it, you'll just have, it's just like a disaster for you on that side. But yeah, if they drop off at any stage, whatever question they drop off, if the response hadn't saved, we'll start that question again. So if they were midway through question 2, they'd start off in question 2.
So I finish question 1, it's already saved in the system, but question 2, I'm in the middle of, power, internet goes down, whatever. Then when I get access to, everything comes back up, I go right back and I start over at question 2.
Question 2, yeah.
Question 1 is saved, so I don't have to worry about that.
If you were finished question 2 and you were just waiting to start question 3,
Right.
you'd be going straight to question 3. It's whatever response was last saved is where we bring you back to the question then that hasn't been saved.
Okay. And then my only other question, and I think I missed the information you were saying. So I get the email to register.
Yeah.
Is there is there a time limit from when I sign up to register to when I would start my assessment, or is that kind of determined by, each program, so to speak?
Yeah, so that's determined by each program. Typically, a lot of schools give about 2 weeks to do it. Sometimes I have some engineering programs that actually keep them open for 2 months and then we come in and close it. But that's that option where you see if you've given a deadline, you write it in the email or you tell them somewhere, then all you need to do is come in here, click those 3 dots and close the assessment. That's completely up to you, and it's not done, as far as I know, Liz, it's not done at a whole level of the whole university. It's literally by your own assessments.
Yeah, it's by program. So if you want to give them a deadline, so normally we try to advise you to at least give them a couple weeks after the deadline, or like a week after the deadline, because once they submit, then they're going to learn about JIRA. So hopefully people are submitting not at the last minute, but we know that's not our world.
What?
You might, or you can put it on your website and you can say, if you're applying, you got to do this before the deadline. It just depends. Like nursing, for example, they're a big program that does it, and they usually give people like 2 weeks after the deadline to do it. And then we can close your assessment at any point. If you're like, all right, we're done, nobody else can do it, we can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Oh, makes sense. Cool. Thank you so much. This was pretty amazing. I'm pretty
It's
impressed.
a cool tool, yeah. So
Yeah.
Happy to work with you guys if you want to do it in your program.
Okay. Very good. Now I'll see what the decision makers say.
Okay, cool.